that have been taking place in Kuwait after 4 months of negotiations. This is in response to the announcement of a new ruling body by Houthi rebels combined with the former President Ali Abdullah Saleh. Osama bin Javed reports.
Agreements are usually welcome, but this one in Yemen has been criticized by the UN. The man standing on the left is former President Ali Abdullah Saleh. With him are representatives of Houthi rebels. The Houthi Revolutionary Committee with Saleh's GPC party have formed a 10-member Supreme Council. It's being seen as an attempt to legitimize Houthi rule, as it's supposed to manage all political, military, economic and administrative affairs. This would mean an end to UN-brokered talks in Kuwait, which have been underway since April.
The announcement of unilateral governing arrangements is not in line with the peace process and endangers the substantial progress made during the Kuwait talks. There's a clear violation of the Yemeni constitution and the provisions of the GCC initiative and its implementation mechanism.
But the warring sides in Yemen don't agree that the talks have made progress. The elected government had demanded that Houthi rebels withdraw from areas they've taken and hand back control. The Houthis had called for an end to a Saudi-led military campaign against them. The demand, along with calls for amnesty and prisoner releases, blocked the way forward. President Hadi's government has previously warned against undermining diplomatic efforts to end the civil war.
We have been in Kuwait for more than 3 months, hoping that the sectarian militias would listen to the voice of reason, giving precedence to the national interest. However, we were only met with procrastination and manoeuvres.
The war in Yemen has killed more than 6,000 people and displaced more than 2.5 million. It's also paralyzed governance and crippled the economy in all areas, whether under Houthi or Hadi government control. Doctors Without Borders has warned that the country's healthcare system is failing. Even in areas where there is no fighting, people are dying due to a lack of adequate medical care.
We call on the international community and the Ministry of Health not to cut off our treatment. We need it. We're surviving of it. If we are cut off, many people will die. There are a lot of people in need in Yemen.
And as the deadlock to reach peace persists, ordinary Yemenis continue to suffer. Osama bin Javed, Al Jazeera.
OK, we can go live now to Washington, D.C. and speak to Samar Al-Hamdani, a fellow with Sana'a Center for Strategic Studies. Thank you for talking to us. This 10-member council that's been formed by the Houthi rebels, along with remnants of the Ali Abdullah Saleh clique in Yemeni politics, seems to have been the decisive blow then to end the dialogue process that was going along in Kuwait. It was this council.
Well, no, I don't think it's going to give a blow to the talks. I think the talks are still possible, very much so. The Houthi movement, or Ansar Allah, like they like to be called, have created councils before several times and still participated in peace talks. I think what they're doing now is playing hardball because they're not seeing eye to eye with Hadi's government.
OK, but this move to form this council has been described as being unilateral and unconstitutional. And I think you heard the UN spokesman saying that this was an effort to undermine the dialogue process.
Absolutely. So several things have been done to undermine the dialogue process. So for starters, the Houthi takeover from the very start was considered illegal and was meant to undermine the National Dialogue Conference that was taking place before the war started in Yemen. What's happening now is we have the Kuwait talks that were the first successful talks that were able to bring President Hadi's faction, former President Abdullah Saleh's faction, and the Houthi faction. And it seems that Saudi Arabia really wants peace to come forward in Yemen. What happened, though, is that the dispute is about the implementation of the United Nations Security Council 2216, which says that the Houthis have to retract and go all the way back to Sada. And then on the other side, you have the alliance between the GPC, the General People's Congress, which is Ali Abdullah Saleh's party, and the Houthis saying that they want a new president and a new government as soon as possible because they do not want to recognize President Hadi's legitimacy. So these two main points are the points of contention. While the peace talks were taking place in Kuwait, there was no ceasefire actually on the ground. The situation on the ground continued to develop as it was before the war. And so right now what I'm saying is that even though they have created this council, there is still hope for Yemenis to move forward. There just needs to be more pressure to bring them back to Kuwait. And as far as I know, it was President Hadi's faction that refused to go back to the talks in Kuwait right after they took the break on the 20th day of Ramadan.
Yeah, indeed. And so we're hearing now that the government has refused to continue with those talks in Kuwait. So in your mind, are you saying then that it's still salvageable, that there is still a process that could be perhaps that could be reinvigorated?
Absolutely, because Hadi's government, President Hadi's government, has legitimacy from the international community, but they do not have control on the ground. They keep on going to the city of Aden, which has been declared a temporary capital until the Houthis retract from Sana'a. But meanwhile, in Aden, we have Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. We have the Islamic State in Yemen taking place there. They're operating on the ground. And President Hadi's government has not been able to return to the ground in Yemen for more than a year now. And so what's happening is that they are trying to force the Houthis and former President Saleh to agree to their terms, but on the ground, realistically speaking, the Houthis and former President Saleh have control of the majority of the northern populations, and so both sides need to come to a compromise. Both sides are refusing to come to that compromise. Meanwhile, the economic situation in Yemen continues to deteriorate. The people are suffering. They're looking for water and basic necessities. There's a very bad famine that's going to come and hit Yemen if these peace talks do not continue. And I think that the UN envoy, Wold al-Sheikh, has really struggled to bring these factions together, and I think only international pressure can make them move forward.
Samar Al-Hamdani, thank you very much indeed for talking to us from Washington, D.C. Thanks.